A new season brought forth by a new year. What new dangers, what new knowledges, what discoveries, and what stories will we uncover? For all of these and more can be found here at the Lair of Omnici in this, our third season. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rob. This is a Lair of Omnici production, and today I'm going to be looking at a product. Quite honestly, it's a review, but I couldn't get the Omnis critic to review it because he rolled his eyes, muttered something about bourgeois garbage, and walked off. So, I'm going to give it a crack. So, now D&D, Dungeons & Dragons, has never been shy about being used to sell stuff before. The D&D logo has been slapped on all kinds of merchandise, shirts, whatever. You could probably get the license relatively easily to try to sell your products. And occasionally D&D has been used in crossovers with other properties. For example, the Stranger Things starter set took the Stranger Things characters and slapped them into Dungeons & Dragons, and it worked. I'm sure people who like Stranger Things enjoyed that little bridge. But sometimes role-playing games are used to advertise and sell other products, sometimes with just kind of a wink and crossed fingers. I would throw up, for an example, the role-playing game that was put out by Wendy's a couple years ago now, where basically the heroic Wendy stood against the frozen burger lord of McDonald's and the burger tyrant and so on. Everything was very tongue-in-cheek. It was a role-playing game that basically served as a living advertisement pseudo-world for fast food. And I have not myself had a copy of that, but I was told that the game itself is perfectly functional. It's just you eye roll at the naked advertising and biases. So I never really paid a great deal of attention to those kind of things, but then somebody sent a picture on social media of something they saw that was kind of odd. So I had to, of course, buy the thing that was kind of odd as it popped up on store shelves, and that was the Dungeons & Dragons promotion of these nerd chunks. Gummy clusters, they call them. So, as far as the product goes, if you've ever had nerd ropes, which is basically nerds embedded into like a red rope licorice, that's this, just in bite-sized chunks. And if you've never seen nerds, it's basically flavored, flossed candy, little nuggets. I can't even eat this stuff because, well, sugar's wrecked me pretty hard, so, don't endorse these at all, just that they have a tie-in with Dungeons & Dragons. Now, you might look at the package and you see the cute little nerds, and by the way, nerds are incredibly cute. Here's an example of a nerd. Aren't they adorable? This particular one was for an Easter promotion, and my wife likes nerds, so, but you put those down, you give the little guy a knife, and all of a sudden he's an adventurer capable of knifing people. This is somewhat ludicrous. They don't have hands. Anything they do would be with their big oversized feet, but, it's promotion. So, and a matter of fact, the little pictures are kind of cute, showing the little adventuring nerds. All each color being a different class. Pretty recognizable right off the package. There's a little bard, there's a little fighter, there's a little cleric or paladin, probably cleric. Maces are usually associated with clerics. And the little guy you get in the little pink thief rogue. So what is this? What is involved with this? Well, basically what it is fairly straightforward. It's a common promotional practice. You buy one of these. you get a receipt. You go to the website, nerdscandy.com/D&D. It sends you to a promotion site, which prompts you to enter your email address and, of course, marketing information. You want to expose yourself to this, you've got to give them your marketing information or make it up. You know, you be you. And then you take a picture of the receipt so that, you can't send in the same picture multiple times. I'm guessing, not that I think they really look at that, but sure. And you give them your email address, and they email you a download to download an adventure. Now, there are a total of 7 adventures. 6 of them they call solo adventures, more on that in a second, and the last one is an adventure for the entire group. So, you download it, you look at it, and well, this is going to be a review of this adventure. So, basically the thrust of the very first one that you get is that Pink, the little rogue nerd, is approached to go and get a gem from a long-abandoned mine. This is standard Dungeoning 101, nothing fancy. There are no real plot twists to this. You are approached by a character who is easily capable of going and taking care of this themselves for much less effort than it would have taken him just to put out the want ad anyhow. And you go, and to be fair, there is a little bit of world building that goes on in this, because the world of nerds is not like back in the day. The city-state of McDonald's had a mayor and everything, but no, this is the town of Harmony, where nerds and people live side by side, and it is implied that there are humans in this too. It's not an entire city made of populated entirely by nerds, but apparently nerds are fine. They have no problem with these little critters, even if they're running around with short bows and daggers and the like. So here comes the first blow. It's not a solo adventure. When most people think of solo adventures, they think of something like this. They think of something like Midnight on Dagger Alley. This is AD&D. What made this a solo adventure specifically? If you look inside of it, look at all that red space. What is all of that red? That was so that you could use one of those red lens filter things to make the blue ink underneath the red visible so that you could read what was there, so that you don't know in advance all of the challenges until you've played it, so that you can keep poking and actually surprising yourself with the different encounters. In other words, you don't need a game master for this. You can go through and you can legitimately make decisions for your character and be surprised by the results. Sometimes you'll win, you might die. It's not balanced specifically, so you can run into things that you probably should run away from. But all in all, you can have an adventure by yourself and not know the answer. There is a written adventure through it. There's lots of opportunities for you to use your various skills. That one's for a thief back in AD&D. But that's how you make a solo adventure. The other way would be something like some sort of a choose-your-own-adventure path thing, where adventures broken up into different sections and you jump from section to section so that it's not just one linear story. You have some license to make decisions when the game lets you make those decisions. Again, not as good as a good, face-to-face role-playing game, but certainly not a bad way to spend some time and play a game at the same time. This doesn't do that at all. This is written with a game master in mind, so it's not really a solo, it's a one-player game. Game master has to be there and the player. If you play it by yourself, you're going to be very bored, because it tells you everything. So, and also bear in mind, this is written for a very young player. This was written for somebody who's never played D&D before, possibly. So there's lots of hand-holding. This is, if the monster seems too scary, you can skip this encounter. Just, tell them it's a spooky thing and move on. if the player wants to make friends with a monster, feel free for them to do it without making any dice rolls. We want people to have fun, more so than necessarily, be challenged or thrilled. And that's fine. Absolutely no problems with that at all. Just bear in mind that if you're going to use this for somebody who's played, they're going to be bored out of their minds. It's a very short adventure with a very, very simple story and explanation through that any veteran adventurer can get done in about 15 minutes. Minus any roleplay that the game master decides they want to put into it. So, the synopsis: players approached, given a job. Go and get a magical gem from this mine. They're given two options on how to get there. They can go through a secret passage, or they can go through the front door of the mine, which is challenging because there are still guards there. Then they have to go in the mine, find the gem, get out, return it back to the NPC. Fairly straightforward. Now, through all of this, there are a couple of hallmarks of the D&D team. It does overall kind of feel a bit like the folks who have written D&D content did have a hand in this. There's a team that's credited for this adventure. And some of the tone and feel, the font is the same. The layout is pretty much structured the same as you'll find in other D&D products. So there's a nice unified feel to that. The editing is uneven. It's not the best. There are some mistakes, but I've seen much worse, quite honestly. So, the sentence phraseology is all pretty good. There's just a few minor errors. And I don't know if in the interest of simplification they meant to make daggers have a die code of a D6 instead of a D4 like proper D&D, but who knows? Maybe they just decided everything's D6s because it's a solo adventure. Doesn't really matter that much. Now, again, this whole adventure would last maybe an hour. And, of course, any game master can spin off endless stuff off of this. The final confrontation is something the player could possibly just deal with combat and be done with it very quickly. If they've been playing as a skilled agent operating in shadows, they have lots of options open to them. It's not particularly challenging as an adventure, as you might expect. Now, does this have any use outside of a promotion for nerds? Well, yeah, it could be reskinned relatively easily. The monster, there's no unique monster in the game to really make this a must-have. It's not going to expand onto D&D at all. Tremendously much. The one named character in it is a reskin. Nothing special. The various guards at the gate are basically just reskins. The actual fact that it is in Nerdland, in the town of Harmony, that can easily be reskinned. The fact there's candy all over the place, yeah, easily replaced with any ore, gem, what. You can make it a cheese mine if you wanted to. Have fun with it. But could you take this adventure out and use it for something else? You could. One of the disappointing things, though, is the state of the map. It's clear they didn't have a budget, so they didn't hire a cartographer. The map looks like it was made with somebody who had basic knowledge of MS Paint. It's maybe not that bad, but it's pretty weak. Not what you're used to from the Dungeons and Dragons team, that's for sure. Now, should I be disappointed in this? No, it was what I expected. This is just a promotional item. They sent a couple of people like, hey, they're probably paying us money to cross promote. Let's just put this up. It's have some fun with it. And they did. Again, the idea of this little guy shooting a bow when he's only got 2 feet, jumping up in the air, I guess, and drawing the bow, drawing in here. It's you don't want to think about that too hard. You really don't. They can use all of their things. They can pick locks. Presumably those legs can really stretch, and those toes are very, very nimble. The character is frequently shown with a key in one paw, foot thing. At one point, he's leaping with a dagger in one and this key in the other, which I think the key is supposed to be symbolic of their thieves' tools. Just would have been harder to show wires and prongs and things. I'm fine with that. But as far as Little Pink themselves, you get rid of the fact that it's a nerd, and the entire character sheet is just fine. So it's a fine little sample rogue. All in all, it's you get your money's worth out of it, which was you've got a bag of candy already, so presumably you wanted a bag of candy in the first place, unlike me who bought multiple bags for just the sake of getting these adventures. Because I'm a sucker like that. Now, here's the other thing. You can only download one adventure a day. So I've got 5 bags of this stuff, which I'll be giving away to people. I'm sure there are people who like nerds and candy and stuff, and my wife will have one. But, one a day, from what I've seen so far, the rogue one is always the trickiest one, because you have to do a few things that showcase the rogue skills, but you don't want to have too much combat. Rogues are not great combatants. Great Alpha Strike with their sneak attack, and that's about it. After that, they could be, especially solo. Solo rogues have it tough, unless you can somehow disengage, hide, and keep springing ambushes on your opponents. Again, don't think this is a solo game. This is a game for one player and a game master. So that's kind of important. Not perfectly well explained. The town is, the background is fine. The curated experience is fine for younger players. It wouldn't be a terrible introduction into Dungeons and Dragons. Is it worth it for an ad? It doesn't make me hungry for candy. But if it did, it just cost me to buy 5 of these bags of candy that I otherwise wouldn't, so I guess it worked. Is it worth getting it for you? I don't know how long it's going to take these things to pop up for free on the internet. I'm sure once the promotion is over, that's probably something they'll think of doing. In which case, then it's, you can play it at your leisure. It'll be fine. One of the other carrots that they have, though, is that every time you get one of these adventures, it also gives you an entry into a contest to be the person who gets picked to go to... Actually, I didn't read those details. To play Dungeons & Dragons with the Dungeons & Dragons team. Does this mean you're going to be sitting across the table from Jeremy Crawford, or... Probably not. None of the major players that are recognizable on the design team showed up in this adventure. So I'm guessing they're not going to have anything to do with it. Are you going to get to play with Chris Perkins in a... I don't know. Probably not. I just... It'd be interesting to win, certainly. Especially if they flew you out to Washington to go to D&D headquarters, and I would love to do that. That'd be great. And hey, if you got to play with Chris Perkins, that would be amazing. He's very good. But I don't know. All in all, was it worth the $3.25 for this bag of candy for this adventure? I wouldn't have bought that adventure for $3.25, to be honest. Especially since the map is, like I said, kind of ugly, something I could do myself and feel like I could do a much better job with, honestly. And that's something I don't usually say about maps in published adventures. But I could make a better map than they did. And the adventure itself is okay. It's okay. If I was going to introduce a game to a new player, I'd put more magic in than this game had. But it is what it is. It's a free adventure, effectively, plus a bag of candy, at the cost of a bag of candy. So, let your own conscience be your guide. This isn't anything to write home about and to set aside a week to play, because each of these adventures is going to take you maybe an hour. I'm curious a little bit to see how they handle a solo adventure for some of the other classes. The wizard. Wizards are always tough to have solo adventures for, especially low level. As far as the fighter, I expect fighting. No big deal there. The the Bard, probably more social interactions, more rolling to get through encounters, more so than straight up combat. So we'll see. I will keep downloading these, and I will probably throw out a review, because why not? I bought a bag of candy for it, so I might as well, right? But that's a Rob Reviews on the first solo adventure for the Nerds Dungeons & Dragons campaign promotion. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to leave them below. I will read them and respond to them. If you are waiting at the edge of your seat to see what all of these are, well, there are 7 of them. I have 5 bags of candy with 5 separate receipts. I have 1 so far. I'll download another one today. And if I can find 2 more bags, I'll eventually get all 7 of them for you. I'm doing this for you. So, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully, you've learned either, unless you love the candy, stay away from this. It's not the greatest of deals. Or you're curious and you have young folks in your life that you want to run a D&D adventure for. You could do worse. You could do far worse. So, thanks a lot. Until next time, farewell.